Hey guys, Jeff here with JTS, and today I want to talk to you about a process that I call fix your butt to fix your gut. Alright, it's a very simple process, and I implement it often based on people's goals, and those goals usually revolve around either flattening your stomach, looking like you have a smaller waistline, or eliminating low back pain, or activating and engaging the glutes more. Okay, so up on my whiteboard, I've currently got the name of this video. However, there's two things that you need to, or the one thing that you need to know, and that's whether you're in an anterior or posterior pelvic tilt. Based on this is how we go about the corrections. So, how you want to figure this out before I explain what they are. Put your fingers, try and find your hip bone. In the front of your body, so find the very top crest of your hip bone. From there, once you find it in the front, go ahead and try and mark yourself with your finger, and then reach behind your back around your hips and try and find the back portion of your tailbone. Okay, you should be able to notice it because it's going to be more bony versus muscly or spine. Okay, so you're actually just trying to look kind of right along your waistline. Now, once you find this, you want to keep the fingers on the front and the back and try and assess how your pelvic bone is tilted, or if it's good position, anterior tilted or posterior tilted. So covering these two terms, anterior and posterior. Basically, if we're looking at the body anatomically, anterior means the front portion of our body. So if we sliced ourselves up right through the center of the middle of our bodies from the side, the front portion is our anterior. If then we took the back portion of our body, that's called our posterior. So if we're working on our glutes, we're working on our posterior. If we're doing something like crunches, we're working on our anterior. Now that we know how the body is dissected, anterior and posterior, we want to look at the way our pelvic bone is tilted. If you have grabbed your pelvic bone and you notice that your thumbs, which should be in the back, are higher while your fingertips are tilted down, that means you have an anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, a way to kind of think about this visually is if you've ever seen Donald Duck walk around, he's got an anterior pelvic tilt. He's got his glutes kind of pushed up, or his butt pushed up, and it's kind of in this forward lean position. You'll oftentimes see this with women wearing heels, or women with bad posture, or a slight use of over excessively wearing heels. Now, a posterior pelvic tilt is something that you may recognize based on what's called a plumber's crack. A plumber's crack is a posterior pelvic tilt where the tailbone tucks underneath in the opposite direction. This is where a plumber's crack comes in, because usually their tailbone's not holding their pants up well enough and they have no glutes, so their pants slide down. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the posterior pelvic tilt because that's very rare and not too common for the average person. However, an anterior pelvic tilt is. And now once we actually look at the anatomy of the body and what the pelvic bone does when it's in anterior pelvic tilt, you'll notice that by tilting the pelvis forward, it actually engages the low back more and actually disengages the glutes. It also pushes the stomach forward, causing the belly to look more expanded or bigger than what it truly is. So that's why I call this fix your butt, fix your gut. Because by getting your glutes to fire and actually train them properly, you can disengage your low back and get your pelvic bone back into a better, more neutral position. Okay? So, what we want to think about doing here is trying to do drills and activation and movements that are going to target the glutes and the hamstrings as optimally as possible. So, for instance, if you're someone that might do a deadlift and you feel a lot of your lower back being used, that's because you're not actually firing and triggering your glutes. Because you're in an anterior pelvic tilt, the low back is engaged more than the glutes and the hamstrings, which cause the glutes to actually shut down. The longer this process happens, so if you have had low back pain for a long period of time, your glutes are probably very dormant, almost like a volcano. They're functioning slightly, but not as optimally as you want. So what you're looking at trying to do here is engage and activate the glutes and shut down the low back so it doesn't take over use and your glutes can start firing correctly. Some drills I really like on this is just some basic kettlebell swings, bodyweight squats or squats in general. Deadlifting with good form, or even RDLs, where you're really focusing on activating the glutes and activating the hamstrings. By getting the glutes to turn back on, it's going to turn off the low back, and by doing that, the more you train that movement and get the glutes to fire, the more the low back is going to shut down and the glutes are going to take over, turning the pelvic bone back to a good position. Okay. When the pelvic bone goes to a good position, it's no longer going to be pushing your spine and your stomach forward, causing you that bloat or extended belly position. Once you have that, you really want to focus on trying to learn to pull the belly in towards the spine, which will help keep a more neutral and natural posture versus this extended belly position that you can kind of see here. So ways to correct this, ways to fix your butt to fix your gut: kettlebell swings, squats, deadlifts, RDLs, and leg curls and glute bridges. Things that are going to activate the glutes as optimally as possible, but the form and function need to be there correctly to allow yourself to get the most out of it. So if you've been training these movements for a long time, you might want to take the weight down a little bit to get a little bit more engagement and really focus on the form of this movement. Again, we're trying to engage the glutes and the hamstrings as much as possible because they're almost like a rubber band against your low back. As the low back is so tight, the glutes are stretched and no longer as active. So we want to turn these off and disengage our low back, and that will cause our posture to go back into a better position. It'll also allow us to go from that anterior tilt, which is when the fingers in the front are higher, lower than the thumbs in the back of your tailbone, or pelvic bone, sorry, not tailbone. Forward position with the forward hands and higher back fingers, right? That will start to correct and more neutralize the pelvic bone and allow you to have less low back pain overall, less extension in the belly, more activation and more glute development in general, as well as just an overall better body position that will make you look and feel 10 times better. So before you start training a ton of let's say sit-ups and ab work to try and flatten that, make sure that your posture is in a better position and you're really focusing on working on that, correcting the anterior pelvic tilt to allow you to have a better, more neutral position, more glute development, and less extension in the lower stomach or belly that causes that gut out position. And that way you guys can actually really build your glutes and your butt and your backside and work that posterior chain. All right, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in comments below, and I'll be sure to answer them and help you out.